When the first whistle came, it was so thin and distant that it might have been wind slipping through the trees. A simple two-note rise and fall that seemed almost playful until it repeated, steady and deliberate, as if someone were practicing a tune they wanted remembered. I was 9 the first time it happened, holding my mother's hand as we walked our dog along the edge of a quiet neighborhood road, bordered by a strip of woods, the kind of place where porch lights made islands of yellow in a long sea of dark. The whistle came again. 2 notes up, 1 note down, then a pause, and again, close enough to be real, far enough to sound impossible, and my mother's fingers suddenly tightened around mine like a reflex she didn't know she still had. Inside,
"Now," she said, not loud and not calm.
A voice sharpened by a memory I didn't understand, and we hurried, the dog's nails skittering on the sidewalk as the whistle kept pace at our backs. Never nearer, never softer, just there. At the front door, keys fumbled, lights flicked on, bolts slid home, and only then did the sound stop. Not in a fade, not as if the whistler walked away, but like a switch being flipped by someone who could see us lock the last lock. We called the police, and a patrol car rolled by once, then again, windows down, spotlight slicing the tree line, and after a while the officer told my mother it was probably nothing. Maybe a prank, maybe birds at night, and the phrase "probably nothing" was the only thing that felt wrong enough to stick. My mother didn't walk the dog after dark for a long time, and she never explained why that whistle had changed her face the way it did, the way old fear looks when it recognizes itself. Years passed, and childhood drifted into dorm rooms and long drives across big skies. And by the summer I turned 23, I slept with the easy arrogance of someone who has mistaken silence for safety. That July, I visited a lake town far from home, the kind of place that borrows its name from the nearest water and sells fireworks from wooden sheds. And I stayed with friends in a rental cabin that smelled like pine cleaner and old cedar. The plan was simple: cook out on the deck, carry lawn chairs down to the shore, and watch the town's fireworks crackle over the black mirror of the lake while boats drifted like fireflies. By the time the first comet lifted, we had settled into the easy chatter of people who aren't expecting the night to hold anything but light and noise. And that was when it came again. 2 notes up, 1 down, a pause, and again, clear across the water like a coin flipped in the dark. Every hair on my arms rose at once. A body's answer to a question the mind hasn't formed yet, and the chair scraped under me as I stood without meaning to, scanning the far bank where the last light gave up to trees. "Did you hear that?" I asked, and someone laughed, said it was a loon or a kid in a boat. But the sound came again, precise, patient, like someone waiting for a door to be opened by the same key they'd used years ago. A canoe slid out from the shadow line, 2 figures low in the hull, and as a fountain of white sparks bloomed overhead, one of them turned toward our shore and whistled the same 3-note pattern, unhurried, as if answering a promise made to a child under a different sky. There was a camera in my hand before I knew I'd lifted it, a reflex to capture proof of something that was only real if it could be replayed, and I recorded the canoe cutting a dark seam through the reflections, while the whistle drifted over water that carried sound too well. No one else on the deck felt the shape of that sound the way I did. Concern is a lonely thing when it doesn't belong to anyone else, and it was easier for the group to call it a coincidence than to feel what it felt like, which was being recognized from far away. Back inside, the cabin's door closed with the same weight as the old door from childhood, and that memory unfolded itself almost gently. My mother's hand, the porch lights, the bolt sliding home, and the whistle halting like a breath held behind glass. I played the recording on my phone and the audio caught it. The 3 notes, exact as a password, thin over the crackle of fireworks and the low murmur of voices that hadn't yet learned what was being asked of them. Sleep was a practice I failed at that night, listening to the cabin's wood settle and the lake hush, waiting for a sound I told myself wouldn't cross the threshold, because fear is a superstition that keeps its own calendar. In the morning, daylight made a liar of everything, as daylight does, and over coffee someone joked about my mystery musician, and the laugh felt kind and cruel at the same time. Weeks later, home again, I asked my mother about that night from years ago, expecting her to meet me halfway with a story, a face, a reason, and she only frowned in the way people do when asked to remember a stranger's name from a party they wish they hadn't attended. "I don't remember," she said, and maybe she truly didn't, Or maybe there are doors in the mind kept locked because the person who stands on the other side remembers the key too well. Sometimes at dusk, walking past the edge of a stand of trees or the mouth of an alley that keeps its secrets politely, a tune can run through the head uninvited, and the body answers first. Shoulders tightening, breath going shallow, listening for a pattern learned young. 2 notes up, 1 note down, a pause, and again, not a song exactly, not a warning exactly, but the shape of attention itself, and in that shape a certainty that whoever made it once knew where a 9-year-old lived and knows, even now, how to find water and wait for fireworks. It is easier to believe in coincidence than in focus, easier to believe in distance than in the idea that some things don't forget, and so life goes on because life is very good at that, at pretending not to hear. But sometimes the night becomes very still, the way it does before a storm, and a sound can carry farther than it should. And in that distance there is a simple call, and in the answering there is the oldest fear, which is not that something is out there in the dark, but that something out there knows a name and is patient. If it was a prank, it has outlived its punchline. If it was a stranger,